Great. So we're live. This is Jake with Mystery College, and today we are interviewing Phil Rice. Phil Rice, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jake. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here with you, sir.
Absolutely. So Phil is a phenomenal Kabbalist, Hermeticist, energy healer, and has many, many talents, including being an exceptional musician as well. So Phil, I'm really curious about your experience with Kabbalah, the healing arts, and what originally brought you to the healing arts.
So I had an experience about 10 years ago where I essentially went through a massive transition in my life where I was teaching. I had a very large guitar teaching business in my local hometown, and I got burnt out. A bunch of things. There was a perfect storm of things in my life, professionally and personally, and I had to adjust. And it included moving on from what I was doing. And essentially, I went from using YouTube for looking at funny things to actually starting to do research. And I remember reading a book years ago that piqued my interest. And so I started following that thread. One thing led to another, and I ended up basically starting meditation. And I ended up connecting with various communities on Facebook, just looking, and I don't know why, I was just motivated and propelled to start, exploring. So I ended up going to a conference in a place called Taupo in New Zealand here. It's at New Zealand's largest lake. It's in the middle of the North Island. And there was quite a well-known speaker coming there for a very small sort of close gathering, and I met a chap there. I jumped on the bus and went down, and I met a chap there, and he turns out he was my birthday twin. I was like, oh, that's pretty fun. He was this young Austrian guy who travels the world and does this, all sorts of things, qigong and Russian sort of system of martial arts, and then he broached me with this conversation about Russian contactless fighting. And I was like, and he showed me some videos, and but sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But prior to that, what the keynote speaker of the conference, who's a well-known sort of ex-Harvard microbiologist chap, really interesting guy, he gave a 6-hour speech compacted down to about 3 hours. So that was full on, right? And what happened was at the end of that particular presentation, everyone walked out of there like, wow, and my friend who drove up from down the line, who I met there, she gets wicked migraines, and this pushed her over the edge a bit. And so for about 20 minutes after this particular presentation, I'm trying to comfort her and play her some nice stuff. There was a nice nylon string guitar there, nice soft tones, just to help relax her. And nothing was working. And this young chap comes over, and full of life and just bubbly as, and he's just like, hey, I can try something. And he basically puts his hands over her head, and within like 10 seconds she looks up and goes, how did you do that? And I was like, isn't that interesting? Because coming from a very practical background of working in construction, forestry, mining, and transport, and et cetera, from another part of my life, very, very practical person. And so this sent me off on a big exploration into energy healing and many forms of it. And I was attracted to certain types over others. And, energy healing ended up, my first initial experiences with being brave and asking friends and family if I can, hey, can I try this thing, because they had a thing, right? They had some kind of, like a sore neck or a headache or whatever. Pretty classic stuff. And I was like, so I bought a book, and it was like a cheap online sort of thing that I'd found. I'd done a bunch of research on YouTube, and I got this book, and I started reading through it, and it gave you some kind of mental gymnastics, I guess you could call them. And so my friend showed up, and she's got this sore thing, and she's laying on her tummy on the mattress, and I'm like putting my hands over her shoulder, and it was in the middle between her blades. And then she said, oh my gosh, it's moving. I'm like, huh. So I just kind of followed it, and then the knot that she'd had in her between her shoulder blades, which had been there for a couple of days, it literally we kind of just chased it out. And then she gets up and she's cool, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like going, huh, okay. And then that gave me some confidence to hit up some other people. And so then I found, and if I just give the whole journey to date in a nutshell, it started out being very much just physical issues. Like people had a thing, I'd do the thing, and then they would usually get a reasonably significant result. It was only a very small number of people that didn't really get any major value out of it. Everyone got something, and this wasn't like a table session where you like a full Reiki hour session where you're getting them to chill out, putting on some nice music or some nice something just to lull them down, help them relax and get still. This was just like, street healing sort of thing, like you're just hanging out and it's like,
Yeah.
you're just doing it in a chair or whatever. And yeah, I built up my confidence over time. And what happened is that it started steering away from just physical stuff, but there's still so much to be harvested from those stories because, people, like I said, when you get a momentum of confidence building experiences by putting yourself out there a little bit, you get to kind of reach a critical mass of like, okay, well, I mean, these are curiosities and they're interesting and they're anecdotes, but at some point, you get this sort of like waxing of conviction of like, wow, there's really something here and it's something of value. And I came across material that really challenged this stuff. And I'm like going, look, whatever people talk about, that's fine. I'm dealing with direct personal experience here because I'm satisfied that I can tell the difference between, this is doing something or it's not, like it's pretty straightforward. I'd ask questions and I developed some, an understanding of the value of metrics. Where is it on the pain scale of out of 10, 10 being the most painful? They'd say 8. At the end of the session, they're like, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. That's a significant change. And when somebody's had an issue for like a year, and you do the thing and then the thing's gone and then it stays gone, this is not just curious, but it's like, like I said, there's value in it. But over time, it became apparent to me that it shifted from just physical issues because people were like going, they get up off the table when I got a table and did table sessions, they're like, well, it's certainly better, but it's still there. But man, I've had this thing bugging me all day. Or I've had this emotional issue or something, and I just feel released of it or free from it, and people were just getting up feeling really peaceful. And then, then we'd just do more focus time on the physical issue. But I mean, for me, like it's hard even now because I come from such a practical background. They came in with a sore thumb, but they left with a lighter heart. This is what got them in the door for something more. And so for me, I started exploring this thing about like, these physical issues in a lot of cases are manifestations from these other planes of reality, it flows down. They manifest through this thought, feeling, and action sort of, this kind of thing. We talk about this in Hermetics, right? And it's like, wow, there's some real credence to that. I mean, and for the average person on the street, I'll say, look, your thoughts can affect, have a direct effect on your physical state, because if you're mindless, you're more likely to bang yourself by not paying attention to your spatial awareness, these types of things. So there's ways of communicating some of these things. But over time, like I said, people started having different experiences, and it was just like, wow, this is really interesting, because even if a person came regularly over a series of weeks, every experience was very unique for them. And so this really nourished my interest in energy healing. And so I spent a lot of time learning about it. I did some Reiki courses, and that was beautiful. I was the only dude in the course, right? And the lady who was teaching me, she had the same birthday as Mikao Sui, and I thought that was pretty fun. And she's pretty well known, and she's real lovely. And so I'm in this really cool environment with these ladies, and it was just like, I just felt really relaxed, and like we did some stuff, and I discovered some intuitive capabilities I had no idea I had, and we validated it through feedback, like talking to the person on the table and things. I was like, how could you know that? And I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, it was just really, it was very encouraging and there was an unfoldment that drove momentum for wanting to explore this further, and people were getting relief. And yeah, so anyway, that's the kind of the energy healing thing. And you know, I still do it today. I don't do it as much as I used to, but it's, I think it helped me develop, like, because when you're doing the practices too, it helps you to relax more and more. And like, the more relaxed I was, I found that when the person got up off the table, they were more relaxed, because you know, a lot of the stuff's born of tension as well. So yeah. So anyway, that's that's just that in a bit of a nutshell.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. It's quite a journey you went on, from being at like New Zealand's largest lake, and seeing someone else do the energy healing at this conference you went to, and then that set up a whole domino effect where energy healing became like a really big part of your life, and awakened intuitive abilities, and brought all these new opportunities into your life. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and you know, like, it's still taken many years to become confident about speaking to this to people in my general sphere of physical awareness and my proximity, like the people in the village, right? You know how the story goes, right? You know, you go off on the hero's journey, as they say. You know, you go, you have a supernatural experience, if you call it that. You kind of you refuse the call, and then the you know, the knocking on the tapping on the shoulder gets louder and louder and louder, and you go, okay, and then you go and sort of, you know, you get your courage tested, and then you go back to the village and you take the knowledge back, or you come down the mountain or get up from the valley and you go back to the village, and you've got this, like, hey guys, this is, you know, like, do you remember how I was a reasonably rational, level-headed person before? Well, I still am, and I've got something to share that I think is valuable and worth checking out. And all you have to do is sit there. You don't, I'm not gonna do any muscle manipulation or adjust anything. It's just like, I'm basically just going to go put my hands on you or just away. And all you're going to do is sit there. And I have to say, it's been a bit of a hard sell in the local area. Like, I mean, as far as a therapeutic, like a genuine therapeutic sort of process, um, like I guess it's just, you know, New Zealand, maybe, I don't know, this is, I've talked to other energy healers around the world, and you know, people have a sort of a default mechanism to go for classical modes of therapies, things that are much more already in the public sort of purview. And you know, energy healing, Reiki, these types of things. In some countries, they're far more prolific and much more accepted. In fact, in some places, they're in hospitals too, right? You know, and these types of things. But here, not so much. It's more it's a, let's just say, a good word to say, it's still very fluffy here. You know, it's a fluffy thing, and that's beautiful in itself, because I know people still get value from it. But you know, I was just like, have you got a thing? You've got a thing that doesn't work, or it's sore. I've got a thing that seems to produce, I've got a hit rate. I measured it out. I've got my healing journal. I went through it and just got some basic stats. I said, because I learned a bit about statistics, I studied placebo, and I read all the skeptics' websites, which was challenging to start with. But man, but those fellas, man, they're great training partners, because they made some good points. Because you've always got to be checking for delusion, right? And I really like that. So I felt very challenged, because I had a mate who's a psychologist dude, who's a hardcore atheist, and he just can't stand any of this stuff. We're not really mates anymore, but he you know, he sent me all these links to these websites, and I'm like, no, I'm going to read it. And he wrote a couple of books and all this type of thing. So I went through all that. I was like going, that was challenging, but highly valuable. And once I got down to it, the people commenting made some good points, but also at the end of it, they were just mocking something that they had no personal experience with, that, you know, like, and so it was just like, oh, okay, I'm kind of getting an understanding of the landscape now from different angles, and that allows me to be a bit more strategic and to move around on my feet a bit more. I'm just very pragmatic about it, you know, like, it either works or it doesn't work, and if people are open to it, that's great. And you know, I've been exploring everything from, like, why is it more effective on some people than others? And then I would teach some people how to feel the energy, like build the ball, and then say, hey, look, you know, if you like what I do, or if you're into this stuff, have a play with this, because if you build your energy sensitivity, I'm wondering, just as an experiment, that might increase the effectiveness of the healing treatment, just as a thing to play with. Because imagine if, like, you could go and see a person and you didn't have to have any sort of, like, hardcore medical type intervention. All you had to do was do some qigong, and that made you more healable by an energy healer, just by, essentially going through this process of developing sensitivity. The jury's still out a bit on that one, but looking for markers of, some therapies work best for some people and some more so for others. Like, everyone's a little different. We live in a very diverse sort of sphere here. So, but yeah, just sharing a bit of awareness about, my experiences, and expressing it in a very level way. Just like one of my bros, he's a very well-known Reiki teacher over in Brisbane, Australia.
Mm.
He's like, I've talked to him many times. I'll probably catch up with him today. We're talking about, like, when you first start doing this, you just want to get up on the rooftops and start yelling and going, "Guy, you really want to check this out, man? This is like, this is crazy." Because not only would they get a relief here or something like this, something else would get sorted, and then they just felt an ease, and they just, for some people, they came back and said, and these are level-headed people. These are just people in my hood, bro. Like, these aren't people. They might be open to a little bit of, some of them might have played around with some tarot cards, or they've been to a psychic fair and they got a few crystals and things. They come for a sesh. Some of them, not all of them, and they're like, "You know what, man? The next morning, I woke up feeling amazing, the best I have in so long. I had a much clearer experience of the day. Things just went right. There was an ease and a fluidity, and I was almost, like, I try to come up with good words, and because, for me, when I do the qigong and introduce, and because I love learning various sorts of Tai Chi forms and things and just playing with them, I sort of see all these forms as like ways to play, and there's this almost cradling or carrying effect that I think, like I said, there's an ease of living, when you start working, especially with the vital field. It's like the information field just starts rejigging some things and tightening up little areas and deficiencies, I think, at a basic level. And you just start, you might just be walking a bit taller, or you might just have a bit more of a pep on your step, and these types of things. You might just have a bit more gas in the tank. And so it's like, yeah, and so for me, that was such a great entry point into what I would call practical metaphysics, or functional metaphysics even, because it was not just like, because I'm having other experiences too. When I started meditating, I started having experiences, all this out of body, lucid dream type things, and lots of synchronicities in that. But this is an objective thing, mostly, that you're having an agreement with another person, and you go through a questioning process and say, well, because you both want to be satisfied that this was something that actually happened and took place. And it's like, people go, "Look, man, look, I get it. You're asking questions, but Phil, I had a thing. Now it's gone. I know something's going on here, and I don't know what's going on, but that was just awesome, or that was highly valuable." And yeah, so it's a very encouraging way to get into, I think, this field, because it builds courage. And for me, it was a curiosity, and I learned a lot about a lot of other things too, like statistics and, placebo, and a bit of medical journal study, and how to look up, studies and verify things, and feel and be satisfied too. Like, I think that's like good brother Bob from 60 Skills says, like, you want to be, what did he say? He mentioned something beautiful once, which was like, you I'll put that to one side, but essentially it's like, when you satisfy your skeptical practical mind, it kind of then starts to help you. It's not working against you. And it's like, suddenly it just opens more doors, more things open. There's a flowering, I think, as well, and unfolding, and it's just very useful. And it means that I can essentially communicate things to people and they're more open to it because, you know, I'm not trying to heal people. I'm saying, hey, look, I've got a thing, because it's all language, man. People get switched off. They get turned off by certain words, trigger words, keywords, these types of things. So I'm very careful about the language I use. I kind of talk to the person, suss out and go, hey, I've got a thing that I do. Lots of people have got value out of it. 10 minutes. I just keep it 10 minutes because most people get like relief in like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, easy. And they also, you know, they get a chance to relax too. You put them in a chair, do a thing, and I just sit there with them, and I put my hand on their leg or just whatever. It's not like I'm standing up and doing all sorts of hand waving stuff. It's more like I'm just comforting them, I guess, and just talking to them. You know, and these types of things. So building rapport in this, because the more the person relaxes, the more the stuff seems to get in there and create sort of high quality outcomes. So I've learned a lot about communication and building rapport and just getting quiet and the value of stillness. And, you know, there's much we can talk about that. So yeah, it's a great entry point. I think if you want to get into this kind of field, just even for building confidence, you know.
Yeah, just for even building confidence and ourselves as people who are providing this type of service, providing healing, providing a container or a space where people can learn the processes to heal themselves, right? Because we're facilitating their own healing, connecting them with their own resourcefulness. And so like, and I'm curious about how you experienced this hero's journey yourself, but between the discovery, between the denial, and then coming full circle, slaying the dragon, and bringing back the gifts back to town and bringing back these healing services to others who are interested. So I'm curious about like with your own clients or with people who you take through either healing journey or a tarot journey or a Kabbalah journey, like what's the hero's journey that you help facilitate for your clients? Like, do you do a discovery session first, or what does a session look like with Phil Rice?
Generally speaking, it's just very organic. It's for me, it's always starts with just a conversation, you know, like, hey, what's up? You know, what's happening? You know, tell me about it. Look, I say, look, you know, I'm a meditation teacher. I'm into all kinds of funky, cool, mystical stuff. I can talk about a wide variety of topics, you know, and you know, I guess, like I said, you know, when people connect with me, first of all, we'll just talk, because they obviously already know a little bit about what I'm about and what my conversation generally entails. And so, you know, because I've also been a tarot reader, and you know, I've done the usual suspects, so to speak. And you know, some of these things still fascinate me, like, you know, tarot and the Tree of Life, and I mean, Kabbalah's always been big. You know, like when I stepped away from studying Kabbalah, like especially the you know, the theoretical stuff, because the Barden stuff is obviously practical. I've done heaps of theoretical stuff, but man, you know, even that, like that opens some pretty interesting doors. And when I stepped away from that, I noticed a bit of a dip in my experiences, you know. But anyway, back to your question, good sir. Now, when people hit me up, and I've got to say, I'm not doing a lot of sessions at the moment, but classically what will happen is that we'll have a conversation, and I'll say, look, you know, if anything, you just want them to feel comfortable in your presence, really, you know, because there's a bit of vulnerability. They're getting on a table with a person maybe they don't know, or I get most of my stuff comes through word of mouth, to be honest. So people recommend me to their friends and things like that. I quite like working like that because it's a bit of a network thing, and there's already a little bit of trust there because they're, you know, so, well, I'd like to think there is, you know, they trust their friend.
Yeah,
and
dude, I recommend anyone who's listening to this to work with Phil if you have an opportunity to, because he's a phenomenal healer and a phenomenal Kabbalist too. So he has a lot to share and teach.
Thank you, very kind. Yeah, so it's just an unfolding conversation. Normally, like, I think a lot of Reiki practitioners will have this hardwired in, is that the first session that they do, they'll introduce the person to what's going to happen during the session, and so the person has an idea of what they're getting themselves into, you know, like what's going to happen, you know. Some guy comes out, you know, like, you know, it's just an average Joe. He's like, right, I'm just going to go and get prepared. And the person's lying on the table. There's a bit of a nice music. Maybe there's like an aromatherapy diffuser and a candle. It's like, oh yeah, this is nice. And the next thing, the dude rocks out wearing a robe and, like, you know, big things and all this. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on? And then there's a drum. And it's like, hang on, I thought I was just coming. You're just going to put your hands on me. And it turns out to be something a lot more. And so, you know, Like, I mean, I'm cool with doing those types of things if I feel the urge to, but I will enunciate that to them and elaborate on that to them first and say, look, this is how we're going to roll with it. But generally speaking, it's like, no, man, let the energy speak for itself. I'm not really I mean, I've got, you know, I enjoy using crystals for meditative things and exploring crystals and that, but I don't use them. Generally speaking, it's like, I just want to make this completely energy centric, and you know, because it should be enough in my view, and that's the focus. I don't want to scatter my focus too much and have too many other variables involved. I just want to go, let's explore this phenomena and its various applications. And so I make that pretty clear to people. I say, look, you know, I'm a practicer, I'm a full-time practicer, you know, qigong out in the bush. I say, if you want to learn this, because I normally say to people, like, you know, after the session, we normally do an hour. If you want to learn how to meditate or just basic meditation type things, can give them a bit of an understanding. You know, I've really learned a lot about meditation theory from guys like Bob and Mark, and you know, and many of the others, including yourself too, just watching the videos and learning and that, and just learning how to explain things to people in everyday sort of modern vernacular parlance, these types of things, so that people can relate to the information. And if you can bring it down to the street, I tell you what, man, there's people out there that want this stuff. They don't know they want it, but if you can communicate it to them, they're more open to it, eh? And so it's the same with the sessions. Yeah, I'm Phil. I'm just an everyday guy. I mean, I like wearing solid colors like this. I'm usually wear a necklace, but I don't really show off any stuff. I'm just, you know, I found this thing that seems to produce these cool outcomes, you know, and I like to create a sacred space. There's value in that. And I guess my approach to setting up the sacred space is that, you know, I don't want sensory stimulus and overload. I generally try to work in a very sort of a quiet, you know, visually quiet environment, these types of things, because I've just noticed this even like in my previous careers, like, you know, working with kids and things, and about how the sense gates get redirected to stimulus and things. And a lot of people get on the table aren't meditators, and if they can't relax, you know, because there's too much going on or they're thinking too much, like they just don't get the value. And for some people, it can take 15 to 20 minutes before they really start just to sink down a bit. You know, like you know, like they're busy. They've come from another thing. They've got lots on their mind. It's like, no, bro. The healing, or whatever we want to use for that word, because that healing, I need to talk about that word a bit more too, because that encapsulates a lot of things. But essentially, once the stillness starts to creep in through the bodies, their physical body relaxes, their emotion, and, you know, start to relax, and then their mental body just starts to become a bit quieter. And then they just go, oh, and there's usually like a big kind of a release. Everyone does it usually, and it's noticeable. There's always some kind of register, you know, physical register, like a sigh or a, oh, wow, you know. It's like, okay, all right. So the first 20 minutes generally is going to be just bringing you down into what I would call probably more of a receptive state. And because I want the people to get the best outcome they have, you know, I don't want to get them and shoo them out the door. But generally I find 60 minutes is plenty. The first session, you're just explaining some things, especially if it's in person. You know, look, hey, I might put my hands here, 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 and here. And there's obviously places I'm not going to put my hands. And so, you know, you bring in a bit of levity just to assure them that you're a pro, and you know what's what, and you know what's not, and all these types of things. And I find that a bit of levity and even a bit of like just reserved kind of humor, you know, can help. Just if there's any tension or reticence, it just helps to crack the shell a bit and just, okay, you know, the guard drops. Because I think too, you know, like after doing a little bit of study of Chinese medicine stuff and learning about protective chi from that angle, people will come in, and, you know, you got to get, if they can relax more, the stuff, it's easier for the stuff to get in, so to speak, and for them to get the outcome. So I take people through a little bit of a conversation, and I'm like, hey man, you'll get what you get from this, and we can talk about this, and afterwards I might ask you some questions. You don't have to answer any of them. I'm not prying. If anything, I'm just curious, because it might help us to understand, because a lot of people will experience imagery, and Sometimes it's just colors or sensations or whatever, or and sometimes there's audio too, even smells and tastes as well, but usually it's a visual thing. And it can be very abstract, but sometimes they'll go, wow, man, I had an image of me, of my childhood, and being really relaxed and enjoying life and being peaceful. It's like I had a flashback. And I'm like, oh. And they go, yeah, it's so vivid. And I'm like, good, bro. I'm like, bro, you just hold on to that thought. Okay. Explore that, fatten it out a little bit. I'm saying, look, if I may offer something, that there, it's like a memory that you can tune back into, and there's a kind of a nourishment and a sustenance and a healing even in just spending some time thinking about that. And I say, look, in Hermetics we do this thing called mental transference, and we put ourselves back into that space, and there's a lot of positive tuning forks within that memory that you can take value from to improve your current situation. And these types of things. They're like, I said, look, you think about how you felt. And yeah, I was so relaxed. Life was good. I was on my bike. I was hanging out with my friends. It was such a cool reminiscence. And I said, well, just think about that and think about how that feels, and just bring that feeling back into yourself. And they're like, oh yeah. And there's a noticeable like change in their sort of their composure. And it's just like, yeah, man, that's one of the reasons why meditation is so valuable, because there's so many ways to play, to bring, to get back to that equilibrium. I kind of think that's the crux of it all. People come back, they're operating suboptimally, and everyone's equilibrium is at a sort of a different sort of level. And wherever your sweet spot is at your current point of life, because of all the contributing factors, wherever that bar is, you want to be at least there. That's the platform for your best operation, for launching whatever you want to do with your life. Equilibrium, whatever that might mean, but a good homeostasis or a good balance point. If your mind's all over the place, or your heart's pulling you around, or your astral body, I'll say, it's a better way of putting it, more appropriate. And if your physicality, if you've got noise in these three bodies and these things, it's going to affect your decision making, and chances are, your choices are going to be reflected in by the quality, by the noise, but you really, if you can clean up the signal to noise ratio, man, life gets gravy real fast. Like you start making better choices, and life just improves.
Absolutely. And can you walk me through a process of how people can learn what's static inside themselves, like in their physical body? What does physical static look like, or in their emotions, or their mind, or the environment? And then where's the signal? Like, where can people find really high quality signals, and where can they keep collecting those signals, or channeling those signals, streaming those signals?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And when it comes to obviously physical noise, you think about all of the how the physical body is affected by the environment. So what we're trying to do is we're minimizing and resolving and dissolving as best we can, and mitigating any and all influences external, first of all. Okay. So for example, if you're putting food in your body that makes your body go, and I like, oh man, like, dude, what are you doing to me? Like if you're not reading labels and just putting whatever in and going, man, why do I feel like crap? It's like, bro, what are you eating? What are you drinking? What sort of physical environment are you hanging out with? Who are you hanging out with? What's the quality? How do you rate it? If you're going to like look at all the different areas of life, because these are all data sources, and the quality of the data informs your experience, right? And so I say to them, look, I've made a lot of big changes in my life, and I had to get pretty ruthless, and some people didn't like that, but like, I'm like, man, once you go from sausages to steak, it's very hard to go backwards. And I'm mostly vegan, saying that, but I use that analogy, right? And I say, look, once you start getting on this train, and good things start showing up, and then you go back, and it's good to give yourself reminders of what things used to be, right? So physically, you might be like, I'm going to make some food changes. Awesome. I say, look, if you put your body under unhelpful loads that create noise, or uncomfortable digestive processes, even, like it's just like it's going to drive your decision making. If you're addicted to food, that can be a little bit more astral as well. But if the animal body is running amok, the carnal body, as we might say, you're going to be like, especially things like food addiction, sex addiction, substance addictions, all of these things, they're going to be driving you and pulling you towards making choices that are akin to that. So it's like, okay, so that's one way to do it. So if what I say to people is, look, if you haven't got your seated posture sorted, it's okay to go lie on your bed or on a yoga mat or on a floor or something and just get comfy, just get really comfy, and just listen to your body. Just take note of what's happening, right? I say, because if you've got, because sometimes like there's this old thing like, oh, I've got a sore finger or a sore thumb or something, and then you go and stomp on their toe, and they're like, oh, thanks, bro. I don't feel this anymore because now I feel this. It's like, like the squeakiest wheel is the one that gets the attention, sort of thing. So, what you're doing is that you're identifying the various things, because you want to discern and highlight to yourself where the noises are. You don't need to know why. It's more the what, like what and where, sort of thing. And you go, okay, right. So I've got a bit of a sore thing here. I've got a bit of an ache in my neck. I've got a bit of a knee thing. And it's like, okay, right, how can I attend to those? And it's like, well, first of all, like if you look at your 4 basic primary needs, right? So you can only go so long without water before you die, right? These are things, you can do, only go so long without. Well, actually, first of all, obviously, is breath. You can go for, most people 3 or 4 minutes breath, probably not even that. And then you've got water, that's a few days. And then you've got, it's a bit of a toss up between food and sleep, but generally you can go longer without food than you can sleep. Like not getting good sleep will really screw you up, and then food, we know that people can go for long periods of time without food and these types of things. So you generally have to tick those boxes off in the course of a day to stay alive, but then there's also the quality of those things. How are you breathing? So I teach people to start breathing through the nose. So, put the tongue to the roof of the mouth and just focus on breathing through the nose. And it turns out there's a chemical process that happens in the nasal cavity, which means you don't have to breathe as much volume, which means you expend less energy in breathing. If you're breathing in and out through your mouth, you're getting less bang for buck, so to speak, because, the chemical reaction in your nasal passage in this area means that the oxygen content is much more bioavailable in your lungs, so to speak. So I say, look, if you just switch to nose breathing, you're going to have more energy throughout the day, just as a starting point. There's a whole bunch of extra things on that, right? I say, look, and there's all the science is there, and here's some links. You can go and look at the infographics and all that stuff, but just do that. Okay. And I said, yeah, when you breathe out too, you're dehydrating yourself because it's, it's all this types of things. And then it's like, okay, well, that's your breathing. That's a good place. That's a good way to upgrade your breathing, upgrading your primary needs. I have written some articles on this. The next one, of course, is, your water. Are you drinking, the municipal tap water? I don't rate that personally. I have a high quality water filter. I spend a lot of time researching water filters, different types of things. And I've satisfied and I found a great one, and that makes a huge difference too. Absolutely. You think about the role of water in transporting things around, and it's also information transport as well at a very physical level, and it's programmable too. Water is like a storage medium as well, and so and we know from some of these experiments about like sending intention to water, freezing it, looking at under the microscope, how how the intention is put upon the water, how it affects the structure of the water. And there's so many different types of water, there's all these different things, and people don't generally need to know all that sort of stuff. But I think if you're going to talk about how to get people like to run them optimally, it's good to be, obviously, if you're wanting to be pro about this, you've got to have a pretty reasonable depth, because some people want to go deeper. Then you've got, food and sleep, and it's like, well, sleep's an easy one. Like, when are you sleeping? How long are you sleeping? And what's the quality of your sleep? You know, are you looking at a screen just before you go to bed? Are you going to bed at different times each night? You get your sleep cycles down, man, life just improves. You just wake up feeling better. And some people sleep too long and they don't have light blocking curtains, or they've got their phone next to their bed. I put my phone is not in my room when I sleep. In fact, I turn the Wi-Fi router off, and I just want clean, clear sleep, man. All that sort of thing, right? And then food, you know, what are you eating? When are you eating? You know, how are you eating? I don't watch and read things when I eat. I sit there with my bowl of food, my little teaspoon, my chopsticks, whatever, and I will eat everything mindfully. I bless the food and I go through my own process with it. But I'm sitting with that food. That food is like what this gift of my body needs to operate on this physical plane. These types of things. So I'll broach a lot of these things with people. But yeah, physical noise. You know, it's like, you know, what's the environment doing to you, you know, at a physical level? And it could be anything. I mean, if you've got smokers living next door, I mean, that's just, oh, God damn, you know, like that's horrible, especially if they're smoking those tailor-made cigarettes. Like those things are just like, yeah, they're nasty, right?
Yeah.
And if you're living in a built-up area, there's pollution, all these types of things. So once you settle the physical body down by starting to listen to it, right? Just going, okay, well, you know, have I got a rash? Am I having too many hot showers? I don't find super hot showers are that great, to be honest. They dry my skin out and they get rid of, they wash all the important oils off, and it's like, it's not always a good time. And so you kind of look at everything that you do and go, how can I upgrade everything in my life that I'm doing? And I think that's why, you know, the Barden book's great, because it really focuses on specific lifestyle habits, and that can be greatly expanded upon with modern understandings. The next one is the astral body. Sorry, before I go into that, did you have any questions about the physical stuff?
Yeah, I think you clarified so many points, like around your environment, drinking the right type of water, creating an environment that's proper for sleep cycles. I think you hit a lot of great points, and then you went really deep into the, not just like being able to discern what's the static, what's the things that are inhibiting optimal living, and then you also pointed out how to get people can dial in, if you will, to a higher signal, like what's higher quality water like. All right, well, maybe you need to invest a couple $100 in a thing that's going to alkaline in your water, that's going to raise the pH level. Or maybe you need to invest several $1,000s in a Kangen water crazy filter, so there's all these little tweaks you can do to improve your life substantially, one little piece at a time. But it stacks up, but then it's exponential, it seems.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, you're right. What you do, guys, is that you start upgrading. That's a cool word. Everyone loves upgrade, especially in the pop culture world. People are playing games. You know, they want to level their character up. It's like, well, you know, in the real world, you got to make those choices, right? You got to take those actions. You got to act on those things. And one of those things you do is like little adjustments here and there all add up, and they are noticeable, right? You know, you basically, and when you start doing something over here and you get a positive result, that attitude and mentality and those benefits, there's a transferability into other areas of your life. They spill over. And that's why I'm also like, you know, like a big advocate of like working the imagination and the creative imagination, because, you know, when you get creative with how you live your life, even brushing your teeth or scrubbing the toilet, right? There's ways to get more value out of the time you have, because that's the only real commodity that you have. Right. And I did want to say something else about physicality. And I think the other one is that movement and exercise are so important, because after, you know, going through, you know, exploring the spiritual, metaphysical arena over the net and all the different communities, and that, you know, the ones that I find that resonate a lot with me are people that place an emphasis on, drum roll, opening up the body in the morning, opening it up, you know, like, and doing weights, as a couple of the bros say, lifting heavy things, you know, going, you know, getting a puff up, going, you know, exerting the body, and, you know, just like pushing it a little bit, breaking some boundaries, running to the next lamppost every day, you know, just pushing yourself a little bit. And this just builds these capacities. So you're refining existing sorts of practices, just everyday things. And then you've got this, you're also expanding on existing capability, and you're just becoming bigger, stronger, more, and it increases your potency of influence in the world. You know, like I got a mate and he's jacked, man. This fella's jacked, man. He's got arms like my legs, bro. And he's just fire out. He's just laser focused, man. Like he gets something done. He's at the gym once or twice a day, even, right? And he commands people's respect because his effort is immediately visible, and that's the kind of world we live in. You know, like people will basically, like, the visual thing is like wow, you know, and they want to, you know, like people want to be like that, or they respect that. That's why you have, and you know, you have all those Greek chiseled like gods and Adonises, right? You know, these you know, these ripped dudes and chicks and that, like, and they represent almost like the highest ideals. And so I think that surrounding yourself with things to aspire to, like high ideals and things like that, like even physically, is great, because it's like you've got this vehicle, look after it, you know, because there's you can take things too far too, you know, and so you just got to, you know, find those sweet spots of operation. But you know, me, I'm more kind of like a yoga qigong guy. I do a bit of heavy lifting too, but I'm not really wanting to get jacked. I don't know, it's just not me. But being a bit toned, you know, I'm in my mid-40s now, and it's good to open up. But yeah, I just haven't found anything that, oh, I can feel it now, you know, like when you switch into that vital feeling, you know, like once you do the 100 hours or whatever, you know, like you can flick it on. Like if you're doing this and it takes you 20 minutes or 10 minutes each time, but if you can flick it on with your mind without even doing the body mechanic, whew, you know, like it's like flame on, like it's wicked, man, you know, like it's so cool. And it just lights you up in the morning. So getting good practices going. And you made a great video about this the other day about, you know, like just pull back on the stims in the morning, man. You know, just because I gotta say, I love my coffee. I can't help it. I've given up so many other things. Well, I've given them up. I've just moved on, you know, alcohol and cigarettes, because I was, you know, I was a muso, you know, that's life, right? Back in those days. But yeah, you know, just give yourself, your body, a bit of space, you know, be kind to yourself, you know, and the temple. So yeah. So but yeah, I'll get started on the astral body now, if you like, or the emotional body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we got like maybe 10 more minutes before we have to end the call.
Cool. Okay. All right. I'll do my best to keep it succinct.
Sounds great.
Okay. So emotional noise, ideally, you know, you've got to be able to discern the noise and separate. You know what you used a great word before, containerizing things. You want to be able to basically externalize something and go, okay, you know, like there's a part of me, I'm not lost in the soup and flailing around. I could draw a circle around the area of my body that I'm feeling this distress, essentially. And you know, and I can find a way to put a thing around it, and then I can find ways of you know, of dissolving it or doing something with it. But I think one of the best things you can do to start with emotional stress is to focus on the mind, of calming the mind down. And in Reiki, they talk about the kokoro, or calming the heart mind, you know, and they bring these two together essentially. They do have a separate energy system of the upper and the middle tanden, but essentially, you know, if you just focus on breathing through the nose, and just because if you've just got a loop going on of just scattered craziness and emotional stress, and like it's driving thought process, and it's unhelpful. You're caught up in a thing, right? So emotional stress is like you've got to go somewhere where you're not feeding that stress, and that can take a bit to get used, you know, like you've got to go and explore techniques, because some things work better for some people than others, just like everything. And you know, as far as the noise goes, yeah, you know, when this thing's, you know, this area of your body is playing up, or it's, you know, it's running amok. And you know, finding ways of dealing with that. And you know, when it's self-induced based on your decisions, how you interact with people, you know, if you go into a conversation with a frame of mind that's you know, slightly antagonistic or aggressive or hostile, and you're wondering why you don't feel that great about it, and you're getting all worked up, and you know, like one person starts getting a bit aggro and the other person and it just starts escalating. It's like, oh man, no, that's not how you roll, bro. You know, like in the big scheme of things, real adults, you know, will have a, you know, the ideal is to have a balanced convo, you know. And so I think you kind of look at things that set off that area, but you can feel it. It's literally like the realm of sensation, right? It's a very much a felt thing. And so you've just got to get to know your temperaments. And I think too that, you know, exploring things like astrology and also like doing the personality plus thing and just getting to know some classical categorizations of personality types helps you to get, because you got to kind of got to know yourself, right? And yeah, and that can help you start to deal with that. And the way to clean, and you're like, once you've got this settled down, like once the water's settled down, man, you know, your decision making abilities start to change. The quality of them changes. It's the same with the physical body. You know, if you're eating food that puts you in a bad mood, you know, what do you think the quality of the decisions that you're going to make are? You know, these types of things. And so if you're under emotional distress, what sort of decision qualities are you going to make? These types of things. So I'll just leave that there unless you got any questions, and I'll move on to the mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you cover those brilliantly.
Thank you, bro. Don't get me wrong, like I'm still learning this stuff, but you know, obviously release techniques are really important too. So having a whole bunch of swag of those under your belt is really valuable, because it can either take this long or this long to sort the thing out. And you know, we've only got this much years. You know, time is the only commodity we really have, and it's like, you know, you're here for a good time, not a long time. So you know, make the best use of your time here and spread and fill your field with harmony. You know, because that rubs off on people, and it's like, oh, okay, people are starting to like chill out and enjoy themselves. Maybe I was the cause of everybody's stress. I don't know, maybe, you know, but with the mind, man, I tell you what, because it really is like, this is the one, right? Because it generally flows down this way, right? You know, you have a thought, it generates a feeling and a story, and then you act on it, and you can get that loop going, and it's like, oh man, it's just like, everything's going a bit south at the moment. I'm wondering why. And it's like, bro, because you're putting your mind on things that you don't need to, that are unhelpful. You're exposing yourself to information that's just getting you wound up. You know, the idea is like some people get triggered by words, and don't get me wrong, there's some words that trigger me too, and things that my mind experiences through the sense gates, smells, you know, like just all sorts of things, but generally, like say media, for example, right? Some people get really triggered when they hear certain words, and it's like, well, imagine being able to experience the data or the information, and it's just a thing that you're looking at. It's not something you have to take on and generate a response or an instant reaction to. It's like, no. Now you create that gap, and you know what I mean about this, right? That's that first exercise in the book, right? You know, you generate that gap, and you do that with everything in your life. And it's like, there's a thing, I'm looking at it, whoop-de-doo, it doesn't govern my response or reaction, but I'm going to look at it and go, okay, well, you know, it's a thing. Is it useful and valuable, or is it just something I can let go of, and these types of things. And the kind of peace that brings into your life when you develop that skill. I mean, that was me, because I was like, my mind is very busy, and it was. And as soon as I started, sorry, I'll just turn that off. Hang on, bro.
It's all good. I had a WhatsApp thing go off too this session.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah. What was I going with this? Yeah. So essentially, you want to bring peace to this body here, you know, best you can, and that will also flow downhill, because everything runs downstream from there pretty much, you know. And so just finding ways to not be influenced in an unhelpful or detrimental way just by experiencing information, and everything is information, you know, the pictures on the wall, the memories, you know. Mark Rasmus has a great exercise where you go through your house, and there's all these memories and artifacts and these mementos and things. And he says, look, you just need to make peace with that stuff, because otherwise it's just stimulus that's setting you off, you know. And some of that is unconscious too, right? A lot of the emotional stress, you're wondering why you're stressed out. It's like, man, I've had a good day and all this, but I don't know why, but I feel this, you know, I'm up in here, you know. and it's like there's a really great Reiki exercise called Joshin Kokyoho, which is basically where you put your mind in your belly and breathe in and out of your belly, or sit in your belly, and it brings all the energy down into your physical, into your vital body, into your core. So all of this scattered stuff that's running around, all flustered and all the rest of it, it just kind of brings. You don't want to feed that stuff. You want it to just, you want to basically unlife it, so to speak, the stress. So yeah, so mental body noise, you get that down. That's obviously closer to the divine signal, and so creating the space for, because essentially if you think about it in a real rough kind of metaphor, you've got a pipe, and if the three joints in the pipe are noisy, they're going to stop the flow. It's going to be a crooked pipe. The flow rate's going to be a bit crap, and you really want to increase that throughput and clean that signal up, because crap in, crap out, like garbage in, garbage out. And so the more you pay attention to cleaning up these three bodies and bringing them into harmony individually, then they start working with each other, and then the three click in, and then, oh man, then you're firing on all cylinders, and then life just gets better. And and if you're on a magical spiritual pathway, like, man, things really start opening up. Well, that's my experience. And so each one of these things is worth learning about. I recommend that book, Initiation to Hermetics, greatly, and all of the supporting materials and all the authors and commentators like yourself, Bob, Mark. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Explore this, get to know it, because it's literally, in my view, the science of improving your life experience. And you can take it as far as you want, but these are the kinds of things worth instilling. And like, if you're if you've got a family, right? There's a reason why those traditions were put in place of, getting together at family time and sitting quietly, or, like food, eating, sort of rules of engagement and things. And like, there's ways of bringing those back and creating your own traditions with the right you've got to have the understanding, expose yourself to the knowledge, and go, how can we make the world a better place? In my view, best practices, learn about them, and it can be fun and interesting too, because the payoffs are just so great. So anyway, yeah. So hopefully that was the good nutshell. The first one was pretty long, but yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before we head off?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to speak on your podcast, Jake. I'm very grateful for the work that you've done over the years and the information you're bringing forth, and also your unique style and signature of how you sort of present that. And I think, we're at a time in history where, the internet's been around for 30-ish years, and, it's really changed things on so many levels, and now's the time, it's a lot easier and okay to talk about things that were generally not okay to talk about. And so, just having open conversations with people is a lot more acceptable. And I mean, like I said, I lived in a pretty conservative town, my little village, and it's a lot more, I won't say liberal, I'll steer away from that kind of language, but what I'll say is that there's a bit more open-mindedness, even within existing systems of understanding and preferences of operation, so to speak, from a spiritual and religious point of view. People are a little bit more embracing and open to things when it's explained to them in a way that makes sense to them and appeals more to their logic, in a sense too. Like, I'm not, you're not trying to disrupt their current mode of thinking or anything like that, but it's like going, hey, here's a thing just for your consideration. I respect and appreciate all the traditions personally. They've all got value in them, and certainly some of them have changed. But yeah, I just say to everyone out there, look, if you're a practicer, and keep practicing and find things that nourish the desire to practice. And I think that's what I'm really excited about this year. I really like all the new stuff coming out, and I'm going to be part of that. I'm stepping up a bit. I've got some help in the background, and I really want to find a way to to help all those people out practicing, because like, sometimes it's just like, man, I just got to watch like a 1 minute short on YouTube, and like that funk that you're in snaps you out of it, and you light up, and then that affects the people around you, and that helps the neighborhood, man. And I think that's what we need now. We need more harmony in the neighborhoods and physical proximity best you can. Go for a walk, smile at people, say what's up, these types of things. And then there's the online communities and that too. So I'm really excited about this year, and I'm grateful to you, Jake, too. And so thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Phil. And is there anywhere that people can get in contact with you, email, website, if they want to work with you, maybe learn Kabbalah from you, or experience an energy healing session?
Yeah, cool. I mean, Kabbalah is obviously like a bit of a love of mine, especially since discovering Barden's third book, from a practical point of view. And, we can certainly catch up and talk about that on another session.
Yeah.
But as far as getting in touch with me goes, my website isn't up and running at the moment, but I mean, I can give you some links and details of how, but generally I've got an email address, info@philrice.co.nz. I'll give that to you. You can share that in the deets. The other one is I've got a personal Facebook page. I'll probably start up an actual, like, a business page shortly as well. But I'm a pretty sort of like just average dude really in that respect. Like, you can just reach out to me and just hit me up for a chat, like I'm just an everyday guy. And I respond to pretty much all the messages, and just hit me up on Messenger on Facebook, or flick me an email. My YouTube is in its fledgling stages. I've started a new one up, and I've got a big list of stuff here. So yeah, just watch the YouTube space, guys, and I'll give all these links to Jake. So thank you. And yes, I have a practitioner space that I use in my local village of Howick in Auckland, New Zealand, and I do online sessions as well. I have had success, and I have been satisfied that distance healing, don't like that word, or absence healing, look, I've had good experiences with it, and I'm much more confident with that. So if you're on another part of the world, I'm pretty flexible with times and things. I always encourage people to go find a local physical proximity practitioner personally. I think it's good to have a relationship with someone physically local. But if you want to hit me up, I'm available. I offer professional services. I can give meditation instruction. I can help you through some of the the steps in initiation to Hermetics and understanding the Kabbalah system as well. And and I'll let you know whatever I'm not comfortable, and what the scope of my expertise is. I'm very honest and straight up about that. I'm by no means a master, and will never probably consider myself that, but I certainly have proficiencies that I am confident in how I can articulate them as well. And so, maximum value for the people that reach out to me. And yes, so yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Phil.
You're most welcome, Jake. Thank you for the call, sir.